because Arabic is the key to Islamic studies,
Yeah.
right? But you cannot get Arabic until you have the right motivation.
Yeah.
And getting that run through the entire Qur'an will give you, I'm telling you, lifelong motivation.
Yeah.
Talking about this in theory, you say, no, you know what? I'm already motivated. I'm going to go to the Arabic. I'll see you in a month when you quit. And that's what I feel my role is for younger people.
Yeah.
Like what I did over a decade and a half, you can do in a year, you can do in 6 months.
Yeah.
And I become the stepping stone for your progression,
Yeah.
right? But the reason my work isn't an alternative to the study of the Quran, I see it as a stepping stone to the study of the Quran.
Yeah. So, Ustad, for an average Muslim, what would you say is a good path for learning?
It's a good question. Look, my experience sort of limited to study of the Quran, and then the rest of Islam kind of started falling into place for me as I was studying the Quran. So I can only recommend what I experienced, and maybe somebody else will have a very different recommendation than I will. But what's cool about my recommendation plan is that more and more scholars that I look up to and that I've admired that are more like diversified in their knowledge than I am across multiple sciences now endorse my view on this. So I feel much more validated in making this recommendation. And that is that I think the thing that, the message that changed the world that the Prophet brought fundamentally was the Qur'an. And then the practice of the Prophet ﷺ is an application of the Qur'an. So it's as if the application, you know, when you're studying a chapter and then there's examples. So the Qur'an is like the chapter and the prophetic practice, so the Sunnah is the examples, right? It's putting that to practice. So so you can't be studying the examples without knowing what are the examples of. You see what I'm saying? So getting a comprehensive view of the Qur'an is a really powerful starting point. And then as the Qur'an gets studied, the prophetic practice keeps getting touched on. And it builds, in my view, it builds your appreciation of the Sunnah in the shade of the Qur'an. So and therefore you get a comprehensive picture of the religion. So the real question is, how do you properly study the Qur'an for the average Muslim? That's really what the question is, right? So in my head, there's like a 3-4 step process. I don't think you should start with Arabic. I don't think so because you're not motivated enough to keep going. Like you're gonna.
It's a big investment.
It's investment. You're gonna be fired up in the beginning, and then you're not gonna feel the motivation. You're gonna taper off, and you're gonna quit. So you kind of ended before you even started. So don't
stop there.
So you don't start with Arabic. It's just a bit. I know you're lazy. This is not a good idea for you. Just don't do it. So what I tried to do was, well, how can I help the average Muslim get started with the Quran? Because the problem is when you're reading translation, you guys tell me, what problems do you face when you read an English translation of the Quran?
It's not like, the English is quite difficult to understand.
Okay, and you're an English major.
You're like experiencing, I guess, someone else's version of how they've understood the Quran.
So you feel a disconnect from the direct language.
Also, it doesn't give like a full definition. For example, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, if you define it as praise be to Allah, you're missing some of it. Thanks be to Allah as well.
Right, so there's only one glimpse of the meaning and several facets are missing, right? Other folks have identified, like, I don't see how things are connected, or I don't see how this subject was followed by that subject, or I don't see why there's so much repetition, et cetera, et cetera. So you get these challenges when you're trying to read the translation. Then you say, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna study tafsir, right? And first of all, in English or other languages, the tafsir resources are limited. But even if they're not limited, they seem sometimes too complicated. Like it's not because we're talking about the average Muslim. Many Mufassirun didn't write their work with the average Muslim in mind. They wrote it for their students. Right? So, which is a different category of people. Right? So my work became, okay, how do I give folks more than translation? Do justice to tafsir without using tafsiri language. So that becomes a bridge to where they get intermediate enough that when they do go to the tafsirs, they can, okay, now that makes sense. Now I'm not intimidated. So there was an intermediate step necessary for which translation wasn't enough, right? That's at least how I saw it. So I did a commentary on the entire Qur'an, kind of like a I like to compare it to a video game walkthrough.
Yeah.
Right, you know those YouTubers that make a walkthrough, like, turn left here, turn right here. You're gonna see this boss. You can't if you don't upgrade this weapon, you're not gonna get that boss,
Yeah.
etc. So I did like a basic walkthrough through the entire Quran and like, hey, here's the thing that's commonly misunderstood when you read the translation. Here's something that people commonly ask when they get to this ayah, but not getting super hardcore on every detail. Just kind of let's walk through
Yeah.
the whole thing, right? I call that a concise commentary.
Yeah.
So I put that together, put it on Bayna TV, and that's available. And my recommendation to anybody who says, hey, what do you recommend? Well, I recommend take advantage of the years of work I put in. So here's how. How about you start with that, maybe 20 minutes a day on your commute to work, on your, just kind of take a year and a half, get through the whole thing. It's about 300 hours. Right? Just get through it, but no note. You're not taking notes. You're not,
Just
like
just
listening to an
listening.
audiobook.
Passively.
A podcast.
Yeah, or a podcast.
Yeah.
So this is your Quran podcast. You're gonna turn the Quran into your podcast. You're gonna go through the whole thing briefly, and even as you're listening, you might say, "Hey, he didn't go into detail here, but I have questions.
Yeah.
He didn't answer those." Right? So what that will do is it will generate a real thirst in you about certain places in the Quran, right? And curiosities. And it will also, over time, it will make you more and more dissatisfied with the dependency on me. Like,
Yeah.
why do I have to, like,
Experience it through you.
through me?
By not
I want to do it
for myself.
myself.
Yeah.
How can I get what he already has? I want it for myself,
Yeah.
not vicariously through him.
Yeah.
That will generate the real drive and energy that you will need to study Arabic. Because Arabic is the key to Islamic studies.
Yeah.
Right? But you cannot get Arabic until you have the right motivation. And getting that run through the entire Quran will give you, I'm telling you, lifelong motivation. Talking about this in theory, you say, no, you know what? I'm already motivated. I'm going to go to the Arabic. I'll see you in a month when you quit. Do this and you will have first of all, you'll have an intellectual bond with the Quran. And second of all, you'll have the thirst to want to connect with it personally, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you get into the Arabic studies. Now, once you get into Arabic studies, there's the next challenge. The next challenge is there are complicated issues in the Quran sometimes. How do I deal with them? And I'm telling you, 20 something years of studying the Quran now, there are issues I haven't dealt with yet in the Quran that I'm going to need time to be able to process them for myself. At a basic level, I could talk about it, but at a deep level, I'm dissatisfied with what I know. Right? So then that's why I did the Deeper Look series. Okay, here are the surahs where I have taken a deeper dive. Maybe I can help you here. And as your Arabic progresses, you can fact check what I'm saying with the Mufassirun and with your own reading, because now you have access to the Arabic, right? And so I took advantage of the life work of several other people, the life work of Ash-Sha'rawi rahimahullah, the life work of Dr. Asar Ahmed. And even when we read the tafsirs, we're taking the advantage of the life work of someone. Like we're reading in 20 minutes
What they
spend their whole life.
that surah was taken in 6 months, and I could do it in 5 hours. Right? So, and that's what I feel my role is for younger people. Like what I did over a decade and a half, you can do in a year, you can do in 6 months. And I become the stepping stone for your progression. Right? But the reason my work isn't an alternative to the study of the Quran, I see it as a stepping stone to the study of the Quran. Right? And then you might find yourself having learned from me and disagreeing with me on many, many things. And in fact, I celebrate that progression because that's what I'm a product of. I'm a product of disagreement. I'm a product of inquisitive thinking, asking questions, and just because I arrived at a certain conclusion that I find convincing, you are free to arrive to a different one, so long as your loyalty is to the text, your loyalty is to the truth, then your right to explore and be convinced and find better argument, and that's actually what the Quran deserves. Because your loyalty is not to
you.
To me, it's actually to the
Quran.
word.
Disagreement also helps you almost become a bit more independent as a student.
And brave, in fact.
Understanding.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that's so cool about my own journey that I can't thank Allah enough. I became famous for whatever reason, and I got access to some very powerful scholarship around the world because of my fame.
Yeah.
That I probably never would have had, like WhatsApp direct message access to
Yeah.
otherwise. And now I get to ask those people at the top of their fields
Yeah.
really unabashed, unfiltered questions about what, because I have a safe space with them
Yeah.
for my own exploration.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest blessings in my life. This is the hugest blessing. I don't have to have reservations about what I'm exploring, you know,
Yeah.
in this study. So, and that's why I want to do the best that I can with it, because I do see it as a responsibility.
Yeah.
But what excites me is actually this young generation of people that are coming, that are going to see my work as not the end point, but the
Start point.
the end
Start
point of
stepping
my
stone.
life
Yeah.
is just a starting point for theirs.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what I see as really, really exciting. That's why I decided that this work that I'm doing is not even, I don't think it's smart of me to do it myself. I need collaboration. I need to work with others and study as a group. So I just developed collaborative learning models for myself for Quran study. So it's a group of scholars, group of students that work together and study any
Yeah.
surah that we're working on. And I think, so to come back to the question, take us like a systematic journey through the Quran.
Yeah.
Let me help you for a year or two, then get into Arabic. If
Yeah.
you can't afford to go to Egypt or Jordan or wherever else, then do it online with me. And if not with me, with someone else, but just
Yeah.
do it. Finish, at least master the Arabic sciences
Yeah.
after that, because you'll have the motivation to see it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as you're navigating the Quran, fiqh, hadith, sharia, all of that will start coming into play as you're navigating.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
almost as a part of like the journey itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it truly puts the Quran at the center, which it's supposed to be.
Yeah.